When Ellie was 7 years old, he found a broken toaster in the trash behind a grocery store. He dragged it home because he liked the clicking sound the loose metal made when he shook it. His mother looked at the dirty toaster and laughed. "What are you going to do with that?" "I want to see how it works," Ellie said. The toaster never worked again. Ellie took it apart and lost half the screws under the kitchen table. But for 3 straight days, he sat on the floor studying every little piece inside it like it was treasure. That was the kind of boy he was. Years later, when people in Harbor Point talked about Ellie, they always said the same thing. He notices things other people stop seeing. Harbor Point was a small town beside the ocean. The air smelled like salt, fish, wet wood, and engine oil. Seagulls screamed constantly. Paint peeled off old buildings because of the sea wind. Nothing stayed new for long there. The town was full of worn-out things, worn-out boats, worn-out shoes, worn-out people. Most families depended on fishing. Every morning before sunrise, men and women walked down to the harbor carrying coffee cups and lunch buckets while the sky was still dark blue. Ellie loved those mornings. Not because they were beautiful. Usually they were cold and uncomfortable. But he liked the sounds. Ropes pulling against wooden docks. Engines coughing awake. Boots hitting wet planks. People yelling half-finished conversations across the water. It felt alive. Ellie's father had been a fisherman too. He died during a storm when Ellie was just 9 years old. Nobody in town liked talking about it directly. Small towns often hide pain inside silence. People would say things like, "That storm was hard on your family," or "Your father was a good man." Ellie remembered tiny details more than big ones. His father whistling badly while fixing nets, the way his jacket always smelled like seawater, the scar near his thumb, the sound of him laughing with friends outside the harbor store. Sometimes Ellie worried he was forgetting his father's face little by little. That scared him more than death itself. After his father died, money became tight. Very tight. His mother cleaned rooms at a motel near the highway. She came home exhausted most nights, with sore feet and headaches. So Ellie started repairing things partly because they couldn't afford replacements. First, he fixed a kitchen chair, then a lamp, then an old fan. By 15, half the neighborhood came to him for help. He repaired things, slowly and carefully. Not because he was trying to be perfect. He just hated waste. He hated how quickly people gave up on things. And sometimes on people too. One afternoon, an older neighbor named Mrs. Alvarez brought him a radio wrapped in a towel. "It's dead," she said sadly. "My husband used to listen to baseball games on it." Ellie turned the radio over in his hands. "How long has it been broken?" "Maybe 6 years." "Why keep it?" Mrs. Alvarez looked surprised by the question. "Because it still sounds like him." Ellie nodded, like he understood completely. 3 days later, he returned the radio. Mrs. Alvarez turned the knob. Static crackled. Then music filled the room. The old woman covered her mouth and started crying immediately. "Oh," she whispered. "Oh, I didn't think." Ellie suddenly felt awkward. "I replaced some wires," he muttered. "That's all." But it wasn't all. Everyone knew it wasn't all. Some people respected Ellie deeply. Others thought he was strange. A group of boys from school sometimes mocked him. One day, Ellie was carrying a rusty bicycle wheel down the street when a boy named Travis shouted from across the road, "Hey Ellie, planning to marry garbage someday?" The other boys laughed. Ellie tried to ignore them. Travis walked closer. "You spend your whole life fixing broken junk. That's depressing." Ellie looked down at the bent wheel in his hands. "It still works," he said quietly. "Barely." Ellie shrugged. "Barely is still something." The boys laughed again, but one of them stopped smiling for a second after Ellie said that. Like, maybe the sentence hit somewhere personal. That happened a lot around Ellie. People came to him with broken objects, but sometimes they left feeling strangely understood, even when nobody talked about their feelings directly, especially then. By 16, Ellie's workshop had completely taken over the shed behind his house. Tools covered every wall. Jars filled with screws and nails sat on shelves. The place smelled like sawdust, oil, metal, and old wood. To anyone else, it looked chaotic. To Ellie, it made perfect sense. He could find a missing screwdriver faster than most people could find their car keys. At night, he often stayed out there long after midnight. Sometimes, his mother opened the back door and called softly, "You need sleep." "In a minute." "You said that an hour ago." "I mean a real minute this time." She would shake her head and smile because she knew he was lying. One rainy evening, she brought him soup while he worked on an old fishing lantern. "You know," she said, "your father used to repair things too." Ellie looked up immediately. "He did?" "Oh yes, terribly." Ellie laughed. "He once tried fixing our sink and flooded the kitchen." "That sounds right." "He liked trying though." Ellie smiled quietly at the lantern for a moment. Then he asked the question carefully. "Do you ever worry I'm becoming too much like him?" His mother looked genuinely surprised. "No," she said. "I worry you're becoming too hard on yourself." Ellie didn't answer, because she was right. He carried responsibility the way some people carried heavy bags, constantly, even when nobody asked him to. That winter, storms came earlier than usual. Fishermen talked nervously at the harbor. "The water feels wrong," Captain Morales said one morning. Captain Morales was old enough that people listened when he spoke about the sea. "You can feel that?" Noah asked skeptically. "After 40 years," the old man replied. Yes. Noah was Ellie's closest friend. Unlike Ellie, Noah talked constantly. He hated silence. He wanted to leave Harbor Point after graduation and move somewhere bigger and brighter. Anywhere without fish smell and storms. "You should come with me," Noah often said. "And do what?" "Anything. Normal teenage things." Ellie laughed once. "What does that even mean?" It means not repairing dead refrigerators on Saturday nights. But Noah admired Ellie more than he admitted, even when he teased him. 3 days before the storm, the sky turned an ugly gray-green color. The kind that makes your stomach nervous before your brain understands why. The wind became strange too. Not strong yet, just restless, like the whole town was holding its breath. Then the storm hit, and it hit hard. Rain slammed against windows so loudly, people had to shout inside their own homes. The wind screamed through streets all night long. Waves crashed over the harbor walls. Nobody slept much. Around 2 a.m., Ellie sat awake listening to the storm while his mother drank coffee at the kitchen table. "You okay?" she asked quietly. Ellie nodded, but he wasn't. Storms always reminded him of his father. At one point, the power went out completely. Darkness swallowed the house. Outside, something huge crashed nearby. His mother flinched. Ellie realized she was scared too, not just him. For some reason, that realization made him get up immediately. He found candles, checked windows, made tea, small, useful things. That was how Ellie handled fear. He moved. The storm lasted until morning. When the sun finally rose, Harbor Point looked wounded. Boats had sunk. Docks had collapsed. Fishing nets tangled across the harbor like giant spider webs. One building near the water had lost an entire wall. People walked around in stunned silence. You could always tell when disaster was real because people stopped speaking in complete sentences. "Oh no! My God! Look at this! What now?" Noah kicked broken wood into the water angrily. "We're ruined." Nobody argued with him, because maybe they were. The roads connecting Harbor Point to nearby cities were flooded and blocked. No help could arrive soon. No fishing meant no money. No money meant trouble for everyone. Ellie stood quietly looking across the destroyed harbor. Then he climbed onto a wrecked fishing boat. Noah stared at him. "What are you doing?" Ellie knelt beside the engine, checking the damage. Noah blinked. "Ellie." "What?" "This boat is destroyed." Ellie touched the cracked metal carefully. "Not completely." The sentence changed everything later, though nobody realized it at the time. For the next several weeks, Ellie worked harder than he ever had in his life. He barely slept. He searched through wreckage, collecting usable parts while everyone else saw trash. Bent metal, half-broken tools, old engine pieces, wood from collapsed docks. Sometimes, people watched him silently, like they couldn't decide whether he was brilliant or insane. Maybe both. At first, only Noah helped him. Mostly because he was worried Ellie would accidentally crush himself under a boat. But slowly, others joined too. Captain Morales, 2 fishermen, then several teenagers, then more. People needed something to do besides panic, and Ellie gave them that. One freezing night, Noah threw a wrench onto the ground. "I'm serious," he snapped. "This is impossible." Ellie looked exhausted. Dark circles sat under his eyes. "Probably," he admitted. Noah frowned. That's your response? Ellie shrugged tiredly. Impossible things become less impossible if people help. Noah stared at him for a second. Then he laughed, despite himself. You sound 80 years old sometimes. The first repaired boat returned to the water 16 days later. Half the town gathered to watch. The engine sputtered violently at first. Everyone held their breath. Then suddenly, vroom! The engine came alive. People started cheering immediately. One fisherman actually cried without hiding it. Captain Morales grabbed Ellie by the shoulders. You stubborn little genius, he said roughly. Ellie laughed for the first time in days. Not a polite laugh, a real one. The kind that escapes before you can stop it. And for the first time since the storm, the town felt alive again, too. One boat became 2, then 4, then more. Nobody in Harbor Point forgot who started it. Months later, after roads reopened, journalists arrived. They interviewed fishermen, business owners, and families. Every conversation eventually returned to Ellie. A newspaper article called him the heart of the harbor. Ellie hated the title immediately. It sounds dramatic, he complained. It is dramatic, Noah replied. You literally helped save the town. Soon, letters arrived, offering jobs, scholarships, money, and opportunities. Big cities, big companies, big futures. Noah looked excited reading them. This is it, he said. Your life changes now. But Ellie felt strangely unsettled. One evening, he walked alone through the harbor. The repaired boats rocked gently in the water. People laughed outside restaurants again. Someone played music nearby. The town still looked imperfect, still worn, still scarred, but alive. And suddenly, Ellie understood something very clearly. He didn't just love repairing objects. He loved repairing possibility. So instead of leaving, Ellie used the money people donated to open a large repair workshop near the harbor. Teenagers came after school to learn skills. Older fishermen came to fix equipment. Neighbors came just to sit, drink coffee, and talk while working with their hands. The place became noisy and warm and full of life. One afternoon, Travis, the boy who used to mock Ellie, walked into the workshop holding a broken lamp. This still work? He asked awkwardly. Ellie took the lamp gently. Barely, he said. Then he smiled. And barely is still something. Years later, a wooden sign hung above the workshop door. It read, "Broken doesn't mean worthless." Tourists often took pictures of it, but the people of Harbor Point rarely did. Because to them, it wasn't just a clever sentence. It was true. The lesson of this story is not really about boats or broken machines. It is about the way people look at damage. Most people see something broken and immediately think, it's finished. It has no value now. It isn't worth the effort. And people do this to each other all the time, too. Someone fails once, and others stop believing in them. Someone loses money, confidence, family, health, and suddenly the world treats them differently, like they became less important. Ellie refused to think that way. That is what made him special. He understood something very human. Sometimes things break because life is hard, not because they are worthless. A cracked chair can still hold weight. A damaged boat can still return to the sea. A tired person can still help others. A grieving person can still love. A struggling town can still survive. The story also teaches something quiet but important. Actions matter more than dramatic words. Ellie did not save the town with speeches. He did not become a hero overnight. He simply kept showing up every day and doing what he could. That feels very real to life. If you enjoyed this story and want more simple English stories with real lessons, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. New stories are coming soon. Stories about courage, kindness, mistakes, and hope. And remember, broken doesn't mean worthless. See you in the next story.